Welcome to episode 43 of Grace and Steel. I'm Kevin Steele.
And I'm Kevin Michael Grace.
June the 23rd will be UK Independence Day. So says UKIP's Nigel Farage, after the country voted in a nationwide referendum to leave the European Union by a margin of 52% to 48%. The marked ballots were barely a day old when sponging globalists, rootless cosmopolitans, media whores, lefty corporatists, cultural Marxists, and other assorted social carpetbaggers were screaming racists, xenophobes, hate-mongers, etc. at the majority and demanding another vote, a do-over. Butthurt Eurocrats were telling the Brits they would have to leave the EU immediately, and not in the 2-year time frame required by their own agreements. Economic basket cases like Scotland and Northern Ireland, whose majorities voted to stay in the EU, were talking separation. All in all, it's a good time to be alive, if you're one of the good ones. The UK can be restored. The British in one vote pretty much overturned their reputation as the most paused nation on earth and became a beacon for nationalists everywhere. That's what we're going to talk about in this segment. But first, Kevin, what's this piece of music you had us start the program with?
It's the Knightsbridge March by Eric Coates. Now, older British Columbians and people in Washington State will remember that as the theme of British Sunday Theatre, which was a program which ran for many years out of KVOS in Bellingham. And they showed British movies. And I thought that this jaunty, jolly march would be the appropriate introduction to celebrate Independence Day for Britain.
This is what Farage was calling it. Yes, Independence Day, the 23rd.
Well, I suspect that it might not be too long before June 23rd is a national holiday. I mean, particularly if Scotland leaves, as now seems likely.
All the Remainers are saying, oh, this is a sign of doom now. We see that in the Canadian papers, in particular. This Iveson guy was talking about how this is doom. But I saw it last night when I was watching ITV, watching the results come in. They had a columnist on from the London Times who saw the drop of the British pound, and she was saying, oh, see, campaign of fear. They weren't lying.
Maybe people were listening to the Canadian, Mark Carney, formerly the governor of the Bank of Canada, and now the governor of the Bank of England, who shamelessly inserted himself into the Brexit campaign.
Mm-hmm.
And I read that Peter Oborne of the Daily Mail is predicting that he will be sacked as a result. Perhaps he can go back to Goldman Sachs.
Okay. It seemed everybody wanted to insert themselves into the Remain campaign. They seem quite butthurt by this. I mean,
the butthurt, it burns.
Well, you know, it was the shot that was heard around the world. I saw you comment on Twitter. I picked that up off your feed.
Yes, Ralph Waldo Emerson's famous line, referring to the beginning of the American Revolution.
Right.
Let's. Why don't we talk about why Remain lost?
Okay.
Let's start with that.
Kevin, why did Remain lose?
Well, they ran a terrible campaign.
Oh, okay.
For a start.
Are we done? No.
I mean, they started with this Project Fear, as it was dubbed, that apparently that if Britain leaves the European Union, shortly thereafter, everyone will be living in huts and eating porridge with their fingers. The George Osborne, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, was a particularly egregious offender in this regard. His doom-mongering was so over the top and so personal that I rather expected him to threaten to harm himself if Britain voted the wrong way.
I should be slipping in my little quip here, since you did introduce the porridge with your fingers thing. My clever little bon mot, which was either eat porridge with your fingers or your gruel with a spoon. There you go. That's all.
Now, the Project Fear campaign in the last week became the Project Grief campaign, where the murder of the MP Joe Cox by a nutter was exploited shamelessly as a reason for Britain to remain. And it fed off this idea being pushed by Remain that Nigel Farage and everyone else who was on the Leave side, well, they're really Nazis, and we don't like Nazis here in Britain. Winston Churchill would have voted for Remain.
Mm-hmm.
That's what his grandson said. Again, shameful, absolutely shameful. And why they lost? Well, because the Leave campaign is, to coin a phrase, it's part of the wave of the future. I believe that I said on this podcast previously that the danger of the slogan, "It's the current year," is this can be easily turned. Hey, how do you like that? It's the current year now, buddy.
Well, that's it. It's why did Leave win? Well, it's because it's 2016.
Yeah.
There you go. We can shoot that out. I think you should pause a moment here and do a little brag-splaining about your prediction last time, because you did, I think,
you pressed me for a prediction, and I don't like making predictions of that sort because I'm terrible at them.
Mm-hmm.
But then I realized today that the reason that my prediction of 52-48 was correct,
dead on.
Well, the bigger prediction of Leave winning, was that there's a long-term trend here, and that long-term trend is the collapse of scale, capital SCALE.
Mm-hmm.
That the institutions, all of our global institutions, are overextended, and they need to be brought down several pegs, and it's happening. Frankly, I never thought that I would see this in my lifetime. And my word, I was a happy fellow yesterday and today still.
Mm-hmm. Even as the sun rose on a pound sterling that was like what, at a 30-year low or something like that. That's all they were talking about on the news, local news here today in Edmonton, was the drop in the pound sterling and the drop in the Canadian dollar, against the American dollar, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, it's everyone's a green eye shade type now. Mm-hmm. They're all wearing the green eye shades.
Yeah.
Oh, what does the Dow Jones have to say about this? Oh, how about gold? The face-to-face blogger wrote about this. Mm. That these arguments were very strange. You know,
right?
That suddenly these young people apparently are just so wrought up in technical financial data.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. This is really deeply sinister because, as I pointed out in the past, people no longer accept the evidence of their eyes and their ears. Hey, how about that economy? Mm-hmm. Doing pretty well. No, it isn't. No, it isn't. Yeah, but the Dow Jones looks great. Yeah, and how does that affect you? Well, so the face-to-face blogger wrote, "Oh my God, racists totally destroyed the bankers. What? Which one is worse? Oh, right, solidarity with the 1%. These progs are aspiring professional managerial people. If there isn't a bubble economy, their overhyped, worthless skills won't be able to secure them a spot in the upper middle class. Therefore, they love the bankers and the stock markets more than they do the working class. Their moralistic preening about inequality notwithstanding." He'd earlier asked, do any of these dumbass millennials actually own any stock? No. Are they involved in currency arbitrage? No.
Yeah, they can barely afford apartments in London.
And no. I mean, London is so ridiculously overpriced that it's expensive to live in a place like Croydon, which for decades was derided as a dump. I mean, if you were reduced to living in Croydon, you weren't doing very well in the world. Now it's full of rich people. Mm-hmm. You have this outrageous situation where the young people are, 4 to an apartment, 6 to an apartment, because that's the only way that they can afford to live in London. Mm-hmm. I'm going to mention that this vote and the campaign that led up to it was the greatest binary division I have ever seen in my life, because the outies, or sorry, the baddies have outed themselves. Every man jack of them. If you look at the Daily Mail article on the winners and the losers, and you look at the people who were on the Remain side, it was, yep, he's a shit. Yep, she's a shit. And it's just, I had, I thought, okay, Billy Bragg, the big-nosed communist, who was, popular in the 1990s?
90s? Was it or late 80s, early 90s, I think.
Well, for some reason, our former colleague Celeste McGovern was a big fan. I could never figure that out.
Well, he was big during the court.
Perhaps his vulnerability appealed to her.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought a few days ago, okay, where's Billy Bragg on Brexit? So I looked to him on Twitter, and yep, he was with Remain.
Mm-hmm.
Now, showbiz types. Yeah. Showbiz types. Liz Hurley certainly did a lot to improve her standing, as far as I'm concerned.
She's standing pretty tall in the picture I'm looking at.
Yeah, and of course, Michael Caine.
Yeah.
Was on the Leave side. And Joan Collins. Mm-hmm. Joan Collins is based, okay?
Yeah.
She's been a UKIP supporter pretty much from the beginning.
Yeah, but they got the Queen on the Leave side as well. And that was a nice touch, I thought.
Well, we don't really know what the Queen thinks, do we?
The Queen is always on the winning side. That's the thing, okay? But Sir James Dyson as well, okay?
James Dyson, another based man.
Mm-hmm.
Here's a man who's actually created jobs.
And things, that's right.
Yes.
I really like his silent fan. I think I could use one right now. It's bloody hot where I'm recording.
I see the commercials for various of his devices, and I think, I'm not really an envious man, and I don't really want to be rich, but I was thinking, if I had the money, I would buy everything he makes.
Yes, cyclonic suction. Yeah, I could get into that.
Yes, like this is a guy who reinvented the vacuum cleaner.
Wow. Yeah, that's the thing. But on the losing side, we've got, of course, J.K. Rowling. Whoa.
Yeah, I mentioned a couple of days ago that becoming a billionaire has really not been good for her peace of mind.
Yeah, I like I have to quote the Daily Mail here because they list in one line J.K. Rowling, Daniel Craig, and Benedict Cumberbatch. Is that how you say it? Cumberbatch?
Yes, yeah. Yes.
The lovies came out for Remain, but couldn't win over a population sick to death of being told how to vote by rich actors who think they're as clever as the lines they recite. Well, that doesn't really apply to Rowling, but...
well, that just certainly would apply to Daniel Craig.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How would you describe him? As brutally handsome? The rumor is that he's none too bright.
Okay, well, he was on the Remain side. But
that transvestite creep, Eddie Izzard, of course, was on the Remain side.
Yeah,
and I forgot the best one, Sir Bob Geldof.
Yeah, that was the guy that was making the F off sign to the fishermen that were protesting the EU on the Thames, was it?
Well, yeah. Geldof and his pals were in some multi-million-dollar barge.
Yeah. Well,
No, I have to hesitate, at discussing Bob Geldof because it's not good for the state of my soul to consider that man.
Mm-hmm.
I start thinking very evil thoughts when his name comes up. So we'll move on to someone else.
Can I just say one thing?
Sure.
Perhaps he was singing "I Don't Like Thursdays." Okay, that's enough of Bob Geldof. But did you see the headlines regarding London wanting to separate? I thought that was brilliant. We could stick them all in a barge and push them out to sea. Here you go. You can separate.
Yeah, well, no, I mean, their Muslim mayor, what's his name, Sadiq Khan?
Yeah.
One of the very first things that he did was to ban revealing clothing.
This is after his election.
On London transport.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Could the burqa be far behind?
Not anymore. It's been Brexited.
No, London is largely a parasite on Britain.
Mm.
It just sucks all the wealth of the country. It's really remarkable what's happened. That there was London, but there were the other cities which were important in their own right. Now there's just London, and the idea is if you don't live in London, you're a loser.
Right.
Which is a terrible attitude.
Well, Birmingham did vote to leave. Manchester voted to stay, but
Go Midlands.
Yeah, but Birmingham, that was a big shock. That was good to see. Were you watching the vote when Sunderland came in? That was the big one where the jaws dropped.
Lindsay Lohan was all agog about Sunderland.
Yeah. Well,
know about this?
No, I don't. I just noticed everybody's jaw dropped on TV. I was watching here it was CPAC carrying the ITV feed from Britain. So that's all I had.
Lindsay Lohan tweeted up a storm last night. Now, she's removed all these tweets, but she was personally outraged that the country was the vote was heading towards leave. And she did this hilarious thing. You remember we were talking about this the other day, that Jonah Ryan on Veep, back when Veep was still good, when Armando Iannucci was running it, that the presidential midterms, that they're, looking at the votes coming in, and Jonah Ryan has this idea that the polls are closed, but, let's keep up the rah-rah spirit, and this is somehow going to affect the vote. And Lindsay Lohan was doing this last night.
Yeah, well, if you cheer hard enough, perhaps you can influence the count. But it was pretty much all over by then. But it was nice to see the returns come in. I mean, that's when they cut to the Remain headquarters, and it had gone silent. That's what they had noticed, that their jaws just dropped at that point. But I mean, the reason their jaws dropped.
That's. I got to interrupt. That's a bad place to be. I was a volunteer in the 1969 BC election campaign. I volunteered for the Liberal Party because it was all free enterprise, right?
Yeah. Go ahead.
And I went to the victory rally in North Vancouver in Deep Cove, and talk about a silent room. And as I say, I was just a kid, and it was rather terrifying because, of course, I'd seen drunk adults before. I had never seen a room full of hundreds of men all determined to drink themselves into a depressed stupor.
Yeah, it was kind of interesting watching this go on, though, because, as the night wore on, they'd be cutting back and forth between Remain headquarters and Leave headquarters. And, of course, this was going late into the night. So you noticed after a while, kind of the older, sober voices, there were fewer of them, right? Lots of young people around getting drunk at 5 o'clock in the morning. But, over at the Remain camp, some of the hard-nosed Blairites were still hanging in there. I mean, I just want to go back to Sunderland. The reason this was a moment where everybody's jaw dropped was because it became obvious at that point that the old Labour vote was going for Leave. And that seemed to spook everybody. And from then on, it was basically a crawl towards victory for Leave. Once they realized that the Labour vote, the old Labour vote, had turned on the young, what would you call them, spivs or whatever of the Labour Party.
The PR spivs?
Yeah. Well, I would call them corporatists because, what I see is, on the left. I see it here in my province. I see it in my country. And I see it in the United States as well, with the left. They've become corporatists combined with cultural Marxism, They sold out to the corporate interests. And I think this is something we've remarked on, at least in our
I should mention that I've used this phrase PR spiv several times on the podcast. It's Simon Heffer's phrase, which he used famously to describe David Cameron, because David Cameron's only work in the private sector was as a PR spiv, I believe, for Carlton Television, where his job was lobbying government. But, just back to Lindsay Lohan, she sent out an Instagram or whatever you call them last night. Be smart, pay attention, and work hard to buy Chanel official. #Remain. Where's Sunderland? Does Sarah Palin live there? LOL.
Oh, okay. Well, I know that you can see Russia from the tallest building in Sunderland. That's for sure. From your backyard, Lindsay. But anyways, sounds like she had a blast.
Well, if you look at the people who are supporting Remain, a great many of them are members of what Dulas famously called the new class. That these people get their money from government in one way or another, a lot of them through NGOs. And the thought of them losing this, that's why they became so hysterical. Because, a lot of them might have to get real jobs.
Well, we did see, what did they say? Something like $175 billion haircut for the rich people in Britain, was it?
Yes.
So
and
there'll be fewer dollars around for them.
This demonstrates that Brexit is the gift that keeps on giving.
Yeah, well, that'll cut into a few salaries, that's for sure.
Yeah, let's get independence for Britain and take a great whack at the 1% at the same time.
Yeah, but of course, the counter argument is, and I did see this in various publications, Canadian as well as Britain. But if you hurt the class that creates all the jobs, you're going to hurt the working class as well. To which, other people appropriately answered, these people that are supposedly creating the jobs are giving the jobs not to the locals, right?
Well, no, yeah. The idea that currency arbitrage is hiring a lot of working class folk.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So, it's an argument that I've heard pretty much all my life, and it's just falling on deaf ears now, which is a nice thing, because
this might have been true in the past.
It was. That's why they still use it.
The new capitalism is all about not creating jobs, certainly not for the people who live where these businesses are headquartered.
Yeah, it's for creating jobs at places like the Cato Institute in Washington, or in the case of, actually, I don't even know what NGOs they have in London that mirror the think tank institutions over here. That's.
Well, Joe Cox was a professional aid worker.
Yeah. Okay.
And, these people used to be engaged in charity out of the goodness of their heart. Well, charity is a well-paid endeavor these days. Doing well by doing good, they call it.
Yeah, they're called the poverty pimps.
Now, another aspect of this is that immigration became a huge issue in the campaign. And UKIP was blasted for tying this to the migrant issue. Well, it's all the same. Immigration is immigration is immigration. It's not like, oh, yeah, we're going to fix Syria and then you people are going to go home. It doesn't work like that anymore. The civil war in Sri Lanka is over, but those hundreds of thousands of Tamils are still in Toronto. Funny how that works.
Yeah. Yeah, the refugee idea is gone. These people become immigrants instant.
Yeah, they're immigrants by the back door. Now, Peter Olborn had an interesting column in the Daily Mail talking about what's going to follow in the wake of Brexit. And he predicts that both the Tory and the Labour Party will, in effect, collapse. Because the Cameroons are much closer to the neoliberal Labourites than they are to the rightists in their own party.
I suppose, but, what we see in the United States, we see a realignment going on within the current structure, right? There's no breakaway at this point. So there is a realignment going on, but it's going on with the current context.
With so many of these never-Trumpers. Well, a few of them have actually endorsed Hillary, but there's no question that they want Hillary to win.
Right.
They might as well be Democrats. I want them to leave. People should be in parties that reflect their actual interests instead of their pretended interests.
Right. So that could happen in Britain. The parties are simply they undergo a realignment from within. That's all I'm suggesting. So rather than, the collapse of the parties.
Well, Oborne also says that he believes that a considerable number of Conservative MPs would refuse to support a government led by Boris Johnson, who, of course, is another one of the big winners of the Brexit. And, he bet the rest of his family was all on the Remain side.
Oh, they had his dad on ITV several times last night.
Yeah. And he took a big gamble in being the public. Him and Nigel Farage were essentially the public face of the Leave campaign, and it's paid off big for Boris.
Oh, yeah, they're talking Tory leadership.
And, we haven't mentioned Nigel Farage. God bless you, Nige. I mean, he, in the beginning, he was all alone. He was all alone. And he was ridiculed nonstop. Well, he who laughs last laughs best, as they say.
Oh, and he was smiling. I mean, his big, wide open mouth, laugh was pictured all over the world, right? The front page of the Daily Mail.
He's an honest man who is comfortable in his own skin, which is why the British establishment hates him.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Because they're all creeps.
Yeah. Well, it was great to see him call it Independence Day because, that could go down in history as calling it that, depending on how things fall out. But, the issue was raised today that there was a lot of animosity directed at Britain from the European leaders. And they were saying, well, let's get them out as fast as possible. And some were suggesting that the EU wants to kick them out as fast as possible in order to punish them and cause some kind of economic collapse in Britain in order to warn others. This is what will happen to you if you decide to go against Brussels.
Well, these people are foolish because the EU for quite some time now has been a suicide pact. And the idea is once in, never out.
Yeah.
The psychic revolution that will result from Britain leaving the EU, I think is going to lead to the demise of that institution in fairly short order. I suspect there'll be, Angela Merkel will be desperate to form some sort of German empire in the heart of Europe.
Right. That would be...
Germany is going to be, Serbia was the last man standing in Yugoslavia, right? And I suspect that Germany is going to be the Serbia of the EU. Hey, the EU, we're still around. We still exist. I don't know. We're down to Germany and a handful of vassal states, but the EU, better than ever. And the idea, of course, is that this German empire would be a political union as well as an economic union.
Okay.
That they're just going to double down on the loss of sovereignty.
That would be, I guess, a little too noticeable for the Germans, I would think, the German people. Wouldn't they rise up at some point and say, hey, we don't want to be part of this anymore? Don't you think?
Well, they have that migrant army in Germany now, which they can use to sick on patriots.
Okay.
That's been going on for some time.
Right.
Don't step out of line, or we'll send a bunch of Syrians your way.
There you go.
Now, Scotland voted, what was it, almost 2-1 for Remain?
Yeah, that a lot of people were saying, we were saying, I guess it's Gibbs-Medat that they were looking for. They're looking for the place.
It's Britain's Quebec is what it is. The situation is remarkably similar. And, of course, they have their own nationalist politics in Scotland. And the Conservative Party was wiped out there. And then in the last election, the Labour Party was pretty much wiped out. And if you look at the last election with Labour almost being wiped out, I think that Labour is not going to be too keen on keeping Scotland in. That would be a huge win for England and Wales if Scotland left. Again, it's an outrageous situation where they get to interfere in England's affairs, but England doesn't get to vote on all of the stuff, all the gibs that they have for themselves, which is paid for by subventions from London.
Yeah, so cut them loose, or let themselves cut loose. Well, maybe they'll do better. Who knows?
Well, the idea is that they'll join the EU, but the question that was raised, I believe, by Peter Oborn and by others is they're probably mistaken if they think they can get as sweet a deal from Brussels as they get from London.
Mm-hmm.
For instance, free tuition.
Right?
Free university tuition.
Yeah, that could be a problem. And of course, they were talking Northern Ireland having what they called a border poll, a vote whether they want to dissolve the border and join Ireland proper. So,
well, that is a very interesting development because, of course, Northern Ireland is another tremendous drain on England because last I checked, something like about 75% of their money comes from London. I mean, it is an economic basket case. And this might lead to them deciding that a union with the Republic of Ireland is making the best of a bad situation.
It doesn't look as grim as they were trying to paint it. That is the Remainers that were so disappointed. They were seeing this as, oh my God, the whole world's collapsing now because everybody's going to turn their back on England. But that doesn't necessarily have to be a bad situation for England. And
there's a fellow on Twitter. His handle is Bud, the repo code. He's a fan of our podcast. And he tweeted, if one country leaving the EU is going to plunge the entire world into economic chaos, then maybe globalism wasn't such a great idea.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, we were looking at this as a bellwether for the rest of the world, right? I mean, we were saying, okay, this was the first of three tests. We saw the Brexit vote, then the Paul Ryan primary, and then the American presidential vote as the three tests of the growing nationalism feeling within the world. And so they've taken the first one. I think a lot of people, the Remainers, sense that as well. And so what they're sensing now is a retreat of their globalism, right? They're sensing.
Oh, sure. I mean, the left-right division has not made much sense since the end of the Cold War. And it's now entirely clear that the new division is, are you a patriot or are you a traitor?
Yeah, well, they're not calling themselves traitors, right? They're calling themselves the entrepreneurial class, the jobs creation.
The clever clogs.
That's right, yeah.
The brains
behind
the people without whom you'd all be eating porridge with your fingers.
Yeah, it's amazing. You see that even, like I say, in my hometown here, watching the local news. They are all disappointed. And I will mention as well for our international audience that we have a prime minister that some of you have heard of. He is saying that, yes, Canada will weather the storm of this, we didn't say terrible event, but, the shocks.
Because we're investing in, innovation or something?
Yeah, I don't know. But
I don't know. I really come to the conclusion that Justin Trudeau is kind of a retard,
Yeah, he couldn't.
I think he talks about innovation. Oh yeah, people tell me this innovation is great. We have to get innovation. How much can we spend on innovation? And I don't really think he knows how this works, or how anything works.
We should ask him if he knows how a Dyson works.
Well, Jason Kenney, my longtime bête noir, former defense minister, former immigration minister of Canada.
And acquaintance of yours?
Yeah. I've known him for a quarter century. He sounded pretty based last night.
Yeah.
And he got into this hilarious Twitter spat with John Ivison.
Yeah, of National Post.
Who was just spitting mad, who just made an utter fool of himself, right?
It was beauty. It was a thing of beauty, yeah.
And he accused Jason Kenney of racist dog whistling, which is richly amusing to me because Jason Kenney has been very fond of using that phrase and accusing people to the right of him, in Quebec, for instance, as engaging in racist dog whistling.
Yeah, you should point out that the spat started because Kenny had, number one, congratulated the English for their vote on Brexit. And he had also chided the prime minister because the prime minister had, of course, supported Remain, as did Obama and I think Hillary Clinton as well. They'd picked the losing
Also,
side.
Gordon Campbell, the former premier of British Columbia, is now the High Commissioner in London.
Mm-hmm.
This was absolutely disgraceful. And Gordon Campbell's diplomatic permit, or whatever you call them, should be revoked, and he should be sent packing.
Mm-hmm.
It is none of Justin Trudeau's business, or Barack Obama, or Hillary, or Gordon Campbell,
Or ours.
or any of these. Well, if you are a representative of a sovereign nation, you do not interfere in the internal affairs of another sovereign country. Now, of course, that's what globalism is all about, but you're supposed to keep it on the down low.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, back channels only.
Yeah.
Yeah, that rule was violated all over the place, though. I mean, you had all the leaders of Europe weighing in on this. So I guess the North American leaders felt that they, weren't intruding too far by weighing in as well. So
Iveson did Jason Kenney a huge favor.
Yeah, well, he's basically
Kenney. It is, as I predicted on Twitter, Kenney's blocked federally because he's a white male from Calgary who was called a social conservative and described as Stephen Harper's heir. And none of those things are in good odor in the federal Conservative Party these days. It is expected, again, as I predicted, that he is going to attempt to take over the right in Alberta, your province, mm-hmm. and where I lived for 5 years. And first by becoming leader of the Progressive Conservative Party of Alberta, and then merging it with the Wild Rose Insurgent Party. And what Iveson did was to create a kind of mythic image of Jason Kenney harkening back to the old Reform days.
Yeah, that's true.
That all these Alberta patriots are thinking, yeah, Jason Kenney, yeah, we need a guy like you to be in charge, and we'll go back to the good old days of two fingers in the eyes of Ottawa.
Yeah, he did that. He actually did that. And yeah, that just happened overnight, as a matter of fact. Well, we'll see what comes of that. That's a local issue. And but it's
all local now.
It is amazing how events over there affected over here. And what I found amazing was that, like I said earlier, I was watching this on CPAC, which is our parliamentary station. They do the political coverage in Ottawa, and they do Supreme Court hearings and things like that. They preempted all their programming to pipe in this thing from Britain. And, it wasn't just, interest for weirdos, because it did affect what's happening here in Alberta. And I'm sure it's going to affect what's happening in BC as well, although we don't see anything direct like we saw in Alberta here with the Jason Kenney thing.
There was a woman who got in touch with me through Twitter, this pretty young woman called Colleen Monroe Knight, who wanted to ask me questions about why I was so interested in the Brexit vote.
Okay.
And she said she's not a journalist and she's polite. Could she ask some questions? So I said, go ahead. And she said, I gather you supported the Leave campaign. Did you participate in the EU referendum? And I responded, nope. I'm Canadian, half British by birth, just a well-wisher. She said, interesting. What kinds of political issues are most important to you in Canada? Do you feel connected to UK due to parents? And I responded, independence, sovereignty, and self-respect. Small is beautiful. And my mother came from Wales at the age of 14, and she's fully assimilated. So then she asked, do you draw the connection that some are drawing today between the Brexit vote and Trump's campaign in the USA? And I responded, absolutely. Brexit is the shot heard round the world. She asked, what kind of changes would you like to see if this is the shot heard around the world? And I said, England for the English, Canada for the Canadians, America for the Americans, Sweden for the Swedish, etc.
We get the formula, yeah.
And then she said, Wales for the Welsh. And I responded, a tricky question. Wales and England have been joined at the hip for over 700 years. How does immigration affect your voting decisions? And I responded, well, I'm against it. Third world immigration has been an unparalleled disaster for the West. Enoch was right. And then finally she asked, do you see yourself as the product of immigration given your family history? And I responded, no. My mother and the first Grace in Canada, who came here in 1840, were not immigrants. They were empire colonists.
Okay.
So, I had a lot invested in this because, I'm half British and I have loved England deeply, for the whole of my life. But also because we're going to see all of these revolts around the world, and I want to see a revolt in Canada as well.
Oh, okay. Well, it's going to take some time. It's, because
crazy idea, I know, but maybe the Conservative Party of Canada might actually realize that patriotism is something they could run with.
Not the current group. They are definitely conservatives, and Canada appears to be going in the opposite direction right now. But we're a little slow. Let's face it. We have missed this trend for the time being. But maybe if it starts in Alberta, things have started here in the past. It might emanate eastward. If we get someone, if your province gets behind us, I guess.
Well, I'll just explain to our foreign listeners that in Canada, we had this new party called the Reform Party, which was kind of, it was not kind of, it was godfathered by our old boss, Ted Byfield.
Right, yeah.
At Alberta Report.
The magazine we worked for, yeah.
Yeah, and this strange man, Preston Manning, who was the son of the long-term legendary premier of Alberta, Ernest Manning, took over the Reform Party, and this was it was really a small is beautiful party, but then it was subverted by this weird, deeply arcane notions of Preston Manning, who loves process above all. Have you ever heard Preston Manning give a speech?
No, I've heard you describe it. I think you have described it on this show.
Just briefly, I'll say that I saw his the last speech before the election in both 1993 and 1997, and they were both at the Butterdome, as they call it, on the campus of the University of Alberta. And I believe it was 1997, Deb Gray, who was the deputy leader, got up there and just gave
Motorcycle Mama.
Yeah, gave a stem winder of a speech, right? Just throwing raw meat to the crowd. And she whipped us into a frenzy. And then Preston Manning came out, and he had this metaphor about his daughter building a house or something, and the basement was this, and the superstructure was this. And 10 minutes later, I thought, is he still carrying on about this house? And he just sucked all the air out of the room.
Oh, crickets. Yeah. Yeah, anyway, so he was the leader of this little band of renegades that went to Ottawa and sucked all the air out of the room.
A great many of the original reformers, including many who became MPs, had been associated with my old friend Doug Christie's party. That is to say, they were Alberta separatists.
Right, the Western separatists. Yeah. Yeah, that was pretty raw meat crowd, too. That was pretty cool when that was happening. That was during the 80s after the... we had a national energy program here. There's a big threat to Alberta and our oil industry. But anyways, long story short, we were ready to go. Instead, they started this party. We wanted in.
You see, the argument against Alberta separation is the same one that was used in the Brexit campaign. If the country's doing well, we're too rich to leave. If it's not doing well, we're too poor to leave.
Yeah. That is the contradiction. Anyways, long story short, it's going to take a while here in Canada, but we're looking to Trump in Scotland making a statement right away. Everybody seemed to key in on the fact that he had pipers ahead of him and that he was making rather patriotic noises on the golf courses.
Well, he comes from a a Highlander clan.
Mm-hmm.
Did you know that?
I heard. Yeah, I think you
On
had
his
mentioned
mother's
before.
side?
Yeah, you had mentioned that.
This is the statement that he released today. The people of the United Kingdom have exercised the sacred right of all free peoples. They have declared their independence from the European Union and have voted to reassert control over their own politics, border, and economy. A Trump administration pledges to strengthen our ties with a free and independent Britain, deepening our bonds in commerce, culture, and mutual defense. The whole world is more peaceful and stable when our two countries and our two peoples are united together, as they will be under a Trump administration. Come November, the American people will have the chance to redeclare their independence. Americans will have a chance to vote for trade, immigration, and foreign policies that put our citizens first. They will have the chance to reject today's rule by the global elite and to embrace real change that delivers a government of, by, and for the people. I hope America is watching. It will soon be time to believe in America again. To which my response is, hell yeah.
Yeah, just like 1-2. Here we go. But I didn't see any reaction from Clinton. Didn't she? Oh, I did see headlines. I didn't actually read the story. She was basically saying, oh, in this uncertain world, you need an experienced hand at the wheel or something to this effect.
Yeah, you need
Yeah.
a corrupt old hag
Yeah.
in charge.
Yeah, looking out for her pocketbook. I think she was saying your pocketbook, but I think she meant hers. So, yeah, it was.
No, I mean, what has happened was inevitable. In the same way that the rise of Black consciousness, Asian consciousness, Hispanic consciousness, et cetera, resulted in a rise of white consciousness. The growth of the global elite, where all of these people of all of these different nations have far, as Pat Buchanan pointed out years ago, they have far more in common with each other than they do with their own citizens. They are very comfortable and very happy when they're with their own kind, and they are distressed and nervous when they are amongst their own kind. And so this has inevitably led to...
hang on. You got to explain that better. You said they were amongst their own kind. They're distressed and...
No, I mean amongst their own peoples.
Right, okay.
When they're with their elite buddies.
Right, they're okay.
They're in hog heaven.
Right, okay. Sorry.
But this has led to an inevitable reaction that, and, just to explain, if I need to explain, why we care about the United States and Trump so much and why we care about Brexit so much is that the patriots of all nations have far more in common with each other than we do with our leaders.
Yeah, I think that's becoming more and more apparent by the day to everybody because, like I say, even the people that you wouldn't think care, and they suddenly, it became very obvious that they were distressed by this vote. All the various anchors on the news programs looked like, this was very serious business, and now the whole world was about to fall apart.
Well, their arguments are bogus.
Yeah, I know.
We need more and more and more of the same. I believe the argument has been made about the Trans-Pacific Partnership, this evil trade deal, which could well be promulgated shortly. But Canada had better hurry up and endorse this officially, because otherwise, we could be in a bad trade situation with China. And my reaction to that is, do they think that we're children? Do they think that we're idiots? Is the idea that in the absence of the TPP, China is going to say, okay, screw you, Walmart. We're not selling you our cheap crap anymore.
Maybe. No more cheap crap. I don't know. Of course it's bogus. This is why a lot of the elites are worried. And I guess one of the ones that should get mentioned here, big loser, George Soros. Didn't see too much about him except on Breitbart. Very disappointed picture of him, but I don't know whether it was current. He was backing Remain big time.
Well, it's a staple of the, how would you say it, the cliche, the narrative, the trope of the Dr. Evil type, the Ernst Stavro Blofeld, that they become more cynical and desperate as they grow closer to death and their judgment by St. Peter. this idea, George Soros, that it's almost within my grasp, that I will turn the world into one world and I will be in charge, right?
Right.
And obviously with the Brexit, it's as if he sees what he has worked for, the evil dream that he's pursued his entire life, it's falling away.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I'm wondering how much of that 175 billion that was lost was his, because well, of course, he famously made his money on betting on the British pound, didn't he, back in the early 90s?
He's the man who broke the Bank of England.
Yeah, there you go.
He also played a big role in the economic crash of the 90s in Asia, where he destroyed a whole bunch of economies.
Yeah, so perhaps he was withholding his fire, and now he's going to try to destroy the British economy. I don't know, but I had understood that he had bet pretty heavily on Brexit. Now, there's going to be a lot of stories, of course, to come, because the one thing that was mentioned in passing on the coverage last night was that somebody really late in the night had bet pretty heavily on Remain while the vote was still going on.
Well, no, this is what we see in the gold and silver markets. These mysterious transactions that happen when everyone in the world is asleep. Oh, billions of dollars shorting gold. And yeah, how does that work exactly? With the result, it's psychological warfare. That the idea is that people are going to become depressed about gold, and they are going to abandon their positions in gold, and this will drive the price down. This has been Goldman Sachs and J.P. Morgan's game. I will point out that it has been reported that the Remain campaign was largely financed by interest-free loans from Goldman Sachs and J.P. Morgan.
Okay. Sorry. Was I to respond?
It's just, the bankers are unhappy.
Yes, of course. But
wow,
the lights were on late last night.
That makes me very happy indeed. It's not that I've become a Bolshevik or anything like this. It's just that my old position was I don't really care that much about rich people, and I don't begrudge them their riches, so long as they made them honestly.
Yeah.
Well, they don't make them honestly anymore. And they use this wealth and the power that it buys openly to crush us.
Yeah, that's the thing. There's a certain amount of malice towards the working class, and you see that. That they believe themselves to be the betters, and they get.
It's not just the working class. Yeah. We've talked about this on the show before. This enormous scam where millions of university students in Canada and the United States undertake debt that they can never possibly afford in exchange for worthless degrees.
Yeah, there is that. So, we're getting close to our hour on this topic. Am I gonna force you into any more predictions here? They are talking about the EU pushing them out quickly in order to force the situation. I think I'd mentioned that earlier. I don't think they can legally. But do you think there's
a process?
Yeah.
There's a process that they supposedly have to follow. Now, I believe that Oborn pointed out that the British government should have contingency plans. And if they don't have contingency plans, everyone associated with that should be sacked. But there's basically what the British government has to do now is to extract the laws from the EU that they want to keep and get rid of all of the ridiculous ones. For instance, how long cucumbers can be and how straight cucumbers can be and how long condoms have to be and all the rest of this nonsense.
Right, yeah. That, that was just making work for bureaucrats, right? And the bureaucracy seemed limitless.
Well, this is one of the reasons why the political class was so keen on Remain, is that I believe it was Glenn Greenwald who pointed this out. It's rather like the situation of the Supreme Court in Canada, that the political class, hey, don't blame us. These orders come from Brussels or from Strasbourg. Hey, I'm against it personally, but what are you going to do?
Yeah, yeah.
And now they're in a situation where they're going to be forced to make hard choices.
Well, I mean, they were the choices that they wanted to make that they were just blaming on others. That's the thing. Now they're gonna the reason they become hard is because they become responsible for them. Also, what they naturally are inclined to will be going against the interests of the people. Isn't that their choice? Their devil's bargain, I suppose. I don't know how to phrase it.
Oh, sure, sure. I'm Christopher Hayes, broadcast pundit.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want a future in which politics is primarily a battle between cosmopolitan finance capitalism and ethno-nationalist backlash. Oh dear, oh dear, hard choices, hard choices.
Mm-hmm.
Can't we all just get along?
Yeah. We get the money and you guys do what we say. Okay. Yeah, that sounds like a good deal. Yeah, sure.
One last thing I wanted to mention in that regard. Christopher Hayes again. He doesn't want this battle. And my response was, don't call it a grave. It's the future you chose. You see the pundit class is taking this attitude of, oh dear, people are upset. How did these upsetting things happen? Oh, for instance, that you changed all the laws to turn the economy into what David Stockman calls a giant casino, that you encouraged the whole of the third world to move to the West. These things they didn't fall from the sky. These were decisions made by our elite, and they told us that, well, this is good for you. Well, we don't like it. That's because you're stupid.
And
you're going to get it good and hard.
Yeah. And if you criticize it, we are actually going to send the police round to knock on your door, possibly charge you with a hate crime. Indeed.
Yeah, well, I suppose that's, another happy result from Brexit, which is that the British police may actually have to start spending time apprehending criminals instead of searching Twitter for thought crime and arresting people because they put a gollywog in a shop window.
Gee,
that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. Might round up a few of those rapists.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, anyways, they did catch some of them. We know that. Maybe they'll catch more now. But all in all, a good thing, Brexit, I will say. Okay.
My final word. Final word is that Great Britain is a union of English, Welsh, Scottish, and Irish, and that's more than enough diversity for any country.
Well put, Mr. Grace. With that, we'll call an end to the first half of episode 43 of Grace and Steel, and we'll be back right after the break.
Dirty old river, must you keep rolling, flowing into the night. People so busy, make me feel dizzy, taxi light shines so bright. But I don't need no friend, as long as I gaze on Waterloo sunset, I am in paradise. Every day I look at the world from my window, but chilly, chilly is the evening time. Waterloo sunset time. Waterloo sunset time. Terry meets you.
Welcome to the second half of episode 43 of Grace and Steel. Our topic, I'm calling the first big blast. In New York, on June 22nd, Donald Trump delivered a speech that spat fire on Hillary Clinton. This was no ordinary campaign speech. It was loaded, and I mean loaded with accusations. And these accusations were backed up by facts. Events, dates, numbers, dollars, where the dirty money went, what specific lies she told. It made the case that Clinton is a criminal who is not only unqualified for office, but should actually be in jail. I myself, just reading it, found it almost overwhelming. This is probably the most important speech Donald Trump's delivered so far. So, Kevin, what's your verdict?
Well, this speech I'm going to call Anatomy of a Murder.
Oh.
Because Donald Trump has killed off Hillary Clinton. Now, Trump has been very clever, and he knows how these things work. People say, oh, what he said about Muslims, the poll numbers go down. Well, the election isn't tomorrow, is it? The election's in November. And it takes a while for these issues to, his statements, his policies, to be disseminated amongst the people and understood. We see that Americans are now on board with the idea of keeping out Muslims, banning Muslims from coming to the United States. It's remarkable.
Took a few months, though, right?
Yeah, took a few months. And apparently the people are ahead of Trump on this now, because he's talking about a temporary ban, and apparently that people are telling the pollsters they're in favor of a permanent ban. But this is the third leg of this stool. That the first was Make America Great Again, and the second was America First, and the third is this demolition of Hillary Clinton, where he repeats and amplifies the idea of Make America Great Again and America First. And now part 3 is Hillary Clinton cannot make America great again. That she is part of the corrupt elite that has rigged America against its own people. And there is one line in this, which as far as I'm concerned, is the political slogan of the century. She gets rich making you poor.
Yeah, she's not the only one, but yeah, that was a big blow to the solar plexus.
So let's go through the speech. You have it in front of you, right?
I do indeed. Yep, full transcript.
Now, why is he running for president? Well, people ask this question. Is it vanity?
Mm-hmm.
Well, he talks about he's been a successful businessman. We work together and turn visions into reality. We think big, and then we make it happen. So I am running to give back to this country, which has been so good to me. And you look at this in terms of an assault on Hillary Clinton, and you see how it all comes together, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why is Hillary Clinton running for president? Well, because it's her turn, right?
Right.
Now, we've had these kind of it's my turn leaders before in the West in recent times. Paul Martin.
In Canada, yeah.
Was prime minister for a couple of years. I mean, hey, get the hell out of the way, Chrétien. It's Paul Martin's turn, right? And then we saw this with Gordon Brown in Britain. Get the hell out of the way, Tony Blair. It's Gordon Brown's turn. Now, but I think the difference between Hillary and Paul Martin and Gordon Brown is that Hillary demonstrates this malevolence that Paul Martin and Gordon Brown did not. She is solely a creature of ambition. What does she want? She doesn't have morals. She just has cravings for money and for power and for revenge. And Trump is exposing this. He says we will never be able to fix a rigged system by counting on the same people who rigged it in the first place.
That's my favorite line, by the way.
The insiders wrote the rules of the game to keep themselves in power and in the money. Now, where are the Bernie voters going to go? Well, Jill Stein is pushing really hard, that she's the Green Party candidate, that the Bernie voters should go to her. Now, Trump is appealing to them openly.
Yeah, that's
why we're asking Bernie Sanders voters to join our movement. So together we can fix the system for all Americans. Importantly, this includes fixing all of our many disastrous trade deals, because it's not just the political system that's rigged, it's the whole economy. It's rigged by big donors who want to keep down wages. It's rigged by big businesses who want to leave our country, fire our workers, and sell their products back into the U.S. with absolutely no consequences for them. It's rigged by bureaucrats who are trapping kids in failing schools. It's rigged against you, the American people. Now, you see the advantage of not being a conservative here?
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah.
That, Mitt Romney, well, I'm a very rich man, and I'm a very rich man because I'm so very clever and hardworking, and you should, let us, the rich people, run the show.
We're the job creators.
That the conservative movement, I suppose from the 1980s, they fell in love with this idea of the entrepreneur. Again, as if people engaged in currency arbitrage and the like, as hedge funds people are entrepreneurs, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, building something permanent there they are.
Trump has been telling the people, I'm a rich man. I know the games that are played. I'm your friend. These people are not your friend. So then he gets into it directly. And this is absolutely hilarious. I love the way that it's sort of casually tossed off. Hillary Clinton, who, as most people know, is a world-class liar.
Yeah.
Just look at her pathetic email and server statements on her phony landing in Bosnia, where she said she was under attack. But the attack turned out to be young girls handing her flowers. A total self-serving lie. Brian Williams' career was destroyed for saying far less.
This is so blunt. I mean, I read this speech and I couldn't believe that all the stuff that was in it, right? I didn't hear it live, but I read it afterwards, and I was just the content. I mean,
this is the way politics used to be, though, in the United States. I think I mentioned before on the show
not
that
in my lifetime
that Harry Truman was really pissed off because the Democratic Party told him to shove off. You are so hated that we can't have you as the nominee in 1952. And they selected Adlai Stevenson instead. And Truman was campaigning for Stevenson, and he accused Dwight Eisenhower, who, of course, you might remember him from World War II fame.
Mm-hmm.
He pretty much said that he was a Nazi sympathizer.
Well, yeah, that wasn't really true. So I don't know whether I call that blunt. When I say something, bluntness,
Well, how about raw?
Yeah, raw. Okay, it's raw. It's raw.
Now, Trump continues, I am running for president to end the unfairness and put you, the American worker, first. You see this call and response, but there are these ghost notes, to use a musical term, that he is running for president to end the unfairness and to put you, the American worker, first. And he's planting this idea in people's heads, well, if you're against this and in favor of this, this must mean that the other person in the race is for all the bad things that you're against and against the good things that you're for.
Mm-hmm.
So Hillary Clinton, the other candidate in this race, has spent her entire life making money for special interests and taking money from special interests. Hillary Clinton has perfected the politics of personal profit and theft.
Yeah.
You see, the idea is we want to see Hillary Clinton, and you, the American people, want to see Hillary Clinton in an orange jumpsuit. Right?
It is the new black.
It is the new black. She ran the State Department like her own personal hedge fund. Ow! Doing favors for oppressive regimes and many others in exchange for cash. Then when she left, she made $21.6 million giving speeches to Wall Street banks and other special interests. In less than 2 years, secret speeches that she does not want to reveal to the public. Together, she and Bill made $153 million giving speeches to lobbyists, CEOs, and foreign governments in the years since 2001. Now, this is an open scandal and has been since 2001. But the media, for its own reasons, has decided that this open bribing of the presumptive next president of the United States is not a story. I mean, when people hear about Hillary Clinton being paid $225,000 for a speech, plus private air travel to and from, first-class hotel suites for her and her entourage, all the rest of that, ordinary people hear this and they think, $225,000 plus for a speech? I mean, maybe if they dug up George Washington and reanimated him and he gave a speech, maybe that would be worth $225K plus. But Hillary Clinton?
Yeah, it's just a money laundering
people
scam.
Are just, it's
Bribe
a very
laundering.
it's a very short step from acknowledging the reality of what Hillary has done to making the decision, well, she's obviously a crook. A crook. Hillary Clinton wants to be president, but she doesn't have the temperament or, as Bernie Sanders said, the judgment to be president. And I'm kind of thinking that Donald Trump seems to be reading my mind, because the day before his speech, I tweeted that looking back to 1900, I cannot think of a presidential nominee who has Hillary's unique combo of incompetence and corruption.
Yeah, but she is the first woman to do that.
Well, yay! Girl power!
Hey, look, a lot of people are going to vote for her on that basis. That's the sad truth.
Single and divorced women who are not a majority.
No, but now they still will cast a vote simply because she is a woman.
Yeah, but I think that her being the nominee, this just didn't work out too well for Geraldine Ferraro and the Democrats in 1984. Ooh, we have a woman as the VP pick. Yeah, how's that going to make my life better? How's that going to make?
Was that 84?
Yeah, okay. Arguably the biggest political blowout in American history.
Right.
But so then he gets back to America first. Our country lost its way when we stopped putting the American people first. We got here because we switched from a policy of Americanism, focusing on what's good for America's middle class, to a policy of globalism, focusing on how to make money for large corporations who can move their wealth and workers to foreign countries, all to the detriment of the American worker and the American economy. We reward companies for offshoring, and we punish companies for doing business in America and keeping our workers employed. This is not a rising tide that lifts all boats. Now, that is a reference to a famous statement made by John F. Kennedy, the rising tide that lifts all boats. Now, you see, again, there's the ghost notes there, right?
Right.
Donald Trump is in favor of Americanism and against globalism, so the other candidate in the race must take the opposite position, right?
Well, now, I mean, obviously she does, actually. So
this is routine. I mean, when Barack Obama ran in 2008 on his bold, not to say controversial assertion that he was in favor of hope and change, the implication was that his opponent, John McCain, was not in favor of hope and change. But that's really weak sauce. Trump is making it explicit how he differs, how profoundly he differs from Hillary Clinton. Now, and we get to the part of the speech here, which looks as if it could have been written by Pat Buchanan or was taken from one of Pat's books. Our country will be better off when we start making our own products again, bringing our once great manufacturing capabilities back to our shores. Our founders understood this. One of the first major bills signed by George Washington called for, quote, the encouragement and production of manufacturing, unquote, in America. Our first Republican president, Abraham Lincoln, warned us by saying, quote, the abandonment of the protective policy by the American government will produce want and ruin among our people, unquote. Now, Trump is reminding people what the media and what the conservative establishment doesn't want people to know, that all the way up to Richard Nixon, America's presidents were protectionist. and America thrived under tariffs.
Mm-hmm.
So he talks about NAFTA. Hillary Clinton supported Bill Clinton's disastrous NAFTA, just like she supported China's entrance into the World Trade Organization. We've lost nearly 1/3 of our manufacturing jobs since these two Hillary-backed agreements were signed. This is just so good that now, obviously, Hillary Clinton is not primarily to blame for NAFTA and for the favored position of China. But you hear his speech and it sounds like it, right?
Oh, yeah, but there was, I guess it's old history now, but there was Chinese bribery scandals going on during the Clinton years.
Oh, yeah, all the money they were getting from Buddhists
Yeah.
who are known for their wealth.
Yeah, so, I mean, she was part of that. She was definitely part of that.
Now, he hits China. Our trade deficit with China soared 40% during Hillary Clinton's time as Secretary of State, a disgraceful performance for which she should not be congratulated, but rather scorned. Then she let China steal hundreds of billions of dollars in our intellectual property, a crime which is continuing to this day. Hillary Clinton gave China millions of our best jobs and effectively let China completely rebuild itself.
Mm-hmm.
Hillary Clinton has also been the biggest promoter of the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which will ship millions more of our jobs overseas and give up congressional power to an international foreign commission. Now, because I've pointed out why it would be such a disastrous deal, she is pretending that she is against it. She has even deleted this record of total support from her book. Deletion is something she is very good at. At least 30,000 emails are missing. Rim shot.
Yeah, that's it. Mic drop, actually. Yeah, I would say.
Yeah.
Rim shot. That's old school.
No Secretary of State has been more wrong more often and in more places than Hillary Clinton. Her decisions spread death, destruction, and terrorism everywhere she touched. Now, you'll recall that in 2012, Mitt Romney didn't really make a big deal about Benghazi.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, what's wrong with this guy? The Benghazi affair was so outrageous, so disgraceful. What kind of government would allow its diplomats to be murdered by Islamic mobs and not lift a finger to help them and then lie about it?
Well, that was the real icing on the cake, the lie at the end. You know, I mean, that was like the cover up, but it was the most painful part of it as far as I was concerned. This lying directly into the faces of the survivors.
Well, he gets to that.
Yeah.
He says, among the victims is our late ambassador, Chris Stevens. He was left helpless to die as Hillary Clinton soundly slept in her bed. That's right. When the phone rang at 3:00 in the morning, she was sleeping. Ambassador Stevens and his staff in Libya made hundreds of requests for security. Hillary Clinton's State Department refused them all. She started the war that put him in Libya, denied him the security he asked for, then left him there to die. To cover her tracks, Hillary lied about a video being the cause of his death. Here is what one of the victims' mothers had to say. I want the whole world to know it. She lied to my face, and you don't want this person to be president. Now, that's Libya. Let's look at the rest of the world. In 2009, before Hillary was sworn in, it was a different world. Libya was cooperating. Iraq was seeing a reduction in violence. Syria was under control. Iran was being choked by sanctions. Egypt was governed by a friendly regime that honored its peace treaty with Israel. ISIS wasn't even on the map. And then he goes on to say that, well, basically Hillary Clinton just screwed this up. And of course, why does Hillary Clinton screw things up? 2 reasons. 1, she's incompetent. And 2, she is corrupt.
I would say distracted as well. Corrupt. She was too busy, running around collecting money from various governments. That was her primary goal. She wasn't looking after the affairs of the state. She was basically looking after her own affairs.
Yeah, grifting takes up a lot of time.
It does.
It's a hard
Yeah.
business.
She was. Yep. You will recall. You can go find the stories where she was being praised for winging all over the world. She was all over the place. We couldn't really figure out why, but now I think it's pretty apparent why. It's funny. I was thinking. I just looked up some of the counter arguments. The attack on Trump on his speech, and I ended up at Vox, the site Vox, and they have this one counter argument. Trump's basic argument is that if a bad thing happened in the world and Hillary Clinton was alive during it, she's the one who caused it. Ha ha ha, kind of thing, right? But I just want to point out
but she's running on her resume.
Exactly. That is exactly it. That's why this was devastating. That's why this is such weak sauce, this Vox article where they try to attack Trump for, trying to nail Hillary. She's claiming responsibility. She's claiming she's the one with experience. Well, let's look at that experience. Let's see what happened under her tenure. So anyways,
he continues, perhaps the most terrifying thing about Hillary Clinton's foreign policy is that she refuses to acknowledge the threat posed by radical Islam. Now, she wants all these refugees coming in here to America. And then he says, I only want to admit people who share our values and love our people. Hillary Clinton wants to bring in people who believe women should be enslaved and gays put to death. Maybe her motivation lies among the more than 1,000 foreign donations Hillary failed to disclose while at the State Department. Hillary Clinton may be the most corrupt person ever to seek the presidency. And he gives some examples from a book.
Yeah, Clinton Cash.
Well, here's one of my favorites because, I spent 6 years writing about the mining industry, and I found out about this, that Hillary Clinton's State Department approved the transfer of 20% of America's uranium holdings to Russia, while 9 investors in the deal funneled $145 million to the Clinton Foundation. She accepted $58,000 in jewelry from the government of Brunei when she was Secretary of State, plus millions more for her foundation. The specificity there, the $58,000 in jewelry, this is brilliant because what sort of a person is so greedy that she can't pay spend $58,000 in jewelry from the tens of millions of dollars she's worth?
Mm-hmm. Well, the specificity, this whole portion of it, the article, in fact, a lot of the article actually reads like an old Atlantic, well-researched article, right? It just has these very specific numbers in it, right? 20% of America's uranium holdings in Russia, 9 investors, funneled $145 million to the Clinton Foundation. These are numbers, that he's not just, rounding up and pretending being vague about it. He's being very precise about this, and it makes it, like I say, very believable, like an old, well-researched Atlantic article. Anyways, pray continue.
Now, there's a callback coming up here to her husband, Bill. Now, it has been suggested by reliable people that various foreign governments, Israel is one that's mentioned, knew about Bill Clinton and Monica Lewinsky. You know about this, right?
Mm-hmm. I'd heard about it, yeah.
And this raises the question of blackmail. So Trump says the 33,000 emails she deleted, while we may not know what is in those deleted emails, our enemies probably do. So they probably now have a blackmail file over someone who wants to be president of the United States. This fact alone disqualifies her from the presidency. We can't hand over our government to someone whose deepest, darkest secrets may be in the hands of our enemies. And this is such beautiful writing, because whose deepest, darkest secrets? Well, everyone has secrets, right? Mm-hmm. But there's the suggestion there that Hillary's secrets are so black, so horrifying, that maybe you don't even want to know what they are.
Yeah, we just want to disqualify her. That way we don't have to deal with it, right? Yeah. There you go.
And then he ends the speech with what he's going to do. How he is going to make America great again. And he ends the speech with this. On Election Day, the politicians stand trial before the people. Again, the suggestion that Hillary Clinton should be behind bars. The voters are the jury. Their ballots are the verdict. We don't need or want another Clinton or Obama. Come November, the American people have a chance to issue a verdict on the politicians that have sacrificed their security, betrayed their prosperity, and sold out their country. They will have a chance to vote for a new agenda with big dreams, bold ideas, and enormous possibilities for the American people. Hillary Clinton's message is old and tired. That's another little masterstroke there. Her message is old and tired, but the suggestion is that she personally, physically, is old and tired.
Well, I think that's true.
Her message is that can't change. My message is that things have to change, and this is our one chance to do it. You see the urgency there? It's like Brexit, the urgency. This is our last chance to do it. Americans are the people that tamed the West, that dug out the Panama Canal, that sent satellites across the solar system, that built the great dams, and so much more. You see, he's appealing to this old-fashioned patriotism, which is derided and mocked by the elite. Oh, tamed the West. Oh, killed Indians, you mean, right? That dug out the Panama Canal. Oh, that stole the whole country. That sent satellites across the solar system. Oh, yes, when people were starving to death in our inner cities, blah, 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 right?
Killed the Martians. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to make light of that. Okay, go ahead.
But, yes. People are going to start working again. Parents are going to start dreaming big for their children again, including parents in our inner cities. Americans are going to start believing in the future of our country. We are going to make America rich again. We are going to make America safe again. We are going to make America great again, and great again for everyone. So, what do you take away from this speech? 2 messages. Hillary Clinton has replaced Jimmy Carter as history's greatest monster. And Donald Trump is going to make America great again. I don't, I'd have to go back to Pat Buchanan's speech at the 1992 Republican, or the 96 Republican convention. I forget the years mixed up. To think of it, a political speech as good as this one.
Mm-hmm. Well, they've really cranked it up a notch, stepped it up a notch, yes. This and looking at what he had said in the Brexit thing, I mean, they're getting quite eloquent. I wonder who's doing this. You have speechwriters, and I'm sure that they shop these things, and it's not all the result of one guy's work. But
well, sure, this idea of Trump having to become more presidential, right? Mm-hmm. His early speeches were extempore,
right?
That off the cuff, and that there was a lot of circular talk.
Mm-hmm.
Now he is delivering written speeches and great speeches, and the idea is, I'm the nominee now, so we have to become more serious, more focused, and I'm doing that. I am rising to the challenge.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Scott Adams, who's been so right about this campaign, he said that the result of this speech is that, well, he said, I think he said it was the greatest persuasion effort that he'd ever seen in politics. But that it just seems that there's one person running for president. There's only one candidate, and that's Donald Trump.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the shot that Hillary Clinton took. Oh, he's attacking me because he doesn't want to speak about the issues. Well, there's a lot about the issues in this speech. But this is a very stupid thing for Hillary to have said. I mean, she really is tin-eared. Because people understand about Hillary that with her, the personal is the political. In fact, all there is the personal.
Okay, that's a good way of putting it. Yeah, there's nobody else, right? She's top dog, and she's.
Well, I mean, with Hillary, what you see is what you get. I mean, with many other leaders, well, what's he or she really like? We know exactly what Hillary Clinton is really like. She is a venal, corrupt, angry, rude, insulting woman who is desperate for power, desperate for money and influence. And that's all she is. That's all she is. Is she associated with anything good in her entire life?
You know what? I don't think so.
This is a woman who made a bargain with the devil.
Mm-hmm.
That
was that Bill or no?
That's Bill.
Mm-hmm.
She wormed her way into Bill's life, and she had money, and Bill needed money at the time. And I believe it was our friend Ryan Landry who said that Hillary's campaign is essentially alimony from Bill. This is her payoff for putting up with him for all these years. But she knew very well what Bill was like when she got involved with him, that he had all these girlfriends.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't exactly a secret. And one of these girlfriends who's written a book, the idea was, Bill is very successful with the ladies. Bill has all of these pretty women who want to have sex with him. Why is he with her? And then, it dawns on them. She has something that he wants. Well, she has money. And 2 for the price of 1, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Effectively, he married his campaign manager.
And now now is the payback. He's the campaign manager. Yeah, the roles are reversed.
Well, I don't think, it's been suggested, and I agree, that Hillary doesn't really want, that Bill doesn't want Hillary to become president. Because then, for the rest of recorded history, when anyone talks about the Clinton presidency, well, which Clinton are you talking about? It'd be another situation like the Adamses or the Bushes, right?
True, yeah.
That they're, 2 Adamses and 3 Bushes, so that they're minimized. The individuals are minimized.
Mm-hmm. There's that,
and Bill will be minimized. And if Hillary's, Hillary would be a disaster as president, which would reflect very badly on Bill. Because Clinton, he did a bunch of bad things. But, and especially the deregulation of the financial industry. But that only walloped America, like a decade after it happened. And 6 years after he left office.
Yeah, so it doesn't really get.
But I bring that up because I think that Americans tend to have a rather rosy view of the Clinton presidency because he's not associated with any great disasters.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, it was the buoyant times. We were in a recession when he came to power, or they were coming out of one, and the economy got more buoyant towards the millennium, and the bubble, the
dot-com bubble.
Yeah, that burst pretty much just after he left, didn't it?
Yeah, very convenient.
Yeah, so it was all just rising tide with Bill Clinton. As Adam Curtis pointed out, that he really didn't have a whole lot to do. There was the surplus that was in the economy, and
Alan Greenspan said, the smart guys are running the show, and you're not a member of our club, so just do as we instruct, and we won't give you a hard time.
Yeah. So he didn't get a lot of bad things pinned on him, except for a semen-stained dress, pretty much. Lying in front of judge.
I could point out that that Bill's disgraceful performance leading to his impeachment, that he dragged America into the filth. Have you read the Starr Report?
Oh yeah, well, parts of it when it came out way back when.
I don't know how much I want to sicken our audience Well, no, just I'll just mention one thing. Having to read the document of an investigation that Bill Clinton masturbated in a sink in an alcove off the Oval Office. This is what Bill Clinton did to America. I can barely find the words to describe how appalling this was.
I noticed they don't have, in all these shows about, the presidency that they have on HBO, they don't show that incident at all. You wonder why, eh?
Yeah, wonder why. Someone pointed out today that the BBC ran a long, quickie documentary on David Cameron after he announced that he was resigning. And it was, fairly balanced, except that the Libya disaster, which David Cameron was responsible for more than any other man, was completely absent from this documentary.
Well, you don't want to say anything bad about a dead man, right?
Yeah, that's what they say.
Right. There you go.
So were you as impressed by the speech as I was?
I told you, I was blown away when I read it. I was like, I can't believe all of this is in one speech. Hang on. Am I dreaming? This is weird. I was really blown away by the facts and figures in this speech. The way the indictment was built up with all these precise numbers. And, it's if somebody could link to this.
That's a good word, indictment.
Yeah.
Because that's what a large part of the speech was.
Yeah. Well, if somebody could link to this, link to information in this, perhaps that's what I'll do. Just research this thing and then put in links or something, to the various things that he refers to. That's really what impressed me. Like I say, it looked like a well-researched journalistic piece, And
well, I'm not an expert on persuasion and hypnotism like Scott Adams, but I worked in radio for several years and I learned something about persuasion. I'll give you an example. You listen to a radio station and there's all these IDs, as they call them, or idents, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're listening to Ched, 690 on the AM dial. Are they at 690?
Yeah, have been forever, It seems.
And they keep, people complain, hey, buddy, I'm not stupid. Why do you keep telling me
sorry. Oops.
Yeah. Why do you keep telling me what station I'm listening to? Well, as I found out in radio, a lot of people don't know which station they're listening to. I remember getting a call. I was executive producer of the talk shows at CJCA in Edmonton for 2 years. And I remember getting this call from someone who said, hey, I really like your station. I think you're doing a good job, but I got one complaint. What's that? You guys play too much heavy metal music. What? You play too much heavy metal music. We don't play heavy metal music on our station. In fact, we don't play any music on our station. This is an all talk and news station. And there was a silence. I'm pretty sure I heard heavy metal music on your station. Okay. I believe it's the BBM is the company. They hand out these booklets and they pay people $5 or $10 to fill out a log of what they've listened to in radio and TV. That's why they keep telling you what radio station you're listening to. And that's why at the bottom right of every television program now is an ident.
You're listening to Grace and Steel, episode 43.
Yes. Yeah. How about that? Now, how this relates to persuasion? These people who write about politics don't seem to know very much about it. Going back to what I was saying earlier, if you want people to know what you stand for, if you want to get people on your side, you have to keep hammering the same themes over and over and over again.
You're listening to Grace and Steel, episode 43.
Most people don't pay that much attention to politics. And in fact, pollsters have discovered that people routinely associate politicians with the opposite of what they believe in.
Oh, okay. That's great.
They do.
Okay.
They do.
Mm-hmm.
And Trump is playing the long game. that he introduces themes. He repeats the themes, and he repeats the themes with variations, to use another musical term.
Right.
He is building up acceptance in the American people, acceptance of him and acceptance of his agenda, which is quite a radical agenda. It is in direct opposition to the agenda of the American government. Well, since Nixon's time?
You've laid down that marker anyway. Yes.
Yeah.
You said that earlier. Yeah.
And he's successful.
Mm.
We've seen this with the question of Muslim immigration. The American people are ready and willing to accept the idea that Hillary Clinton is both incompetent and corrupt. He has fitted her for an orange jumpsuit.
Yeah,
and again, it's sorry to interrupt, but it's two for the price of one.
Mm-hmm.
Elect me president, and I'll make America great again. I'll also send Hillary Clinton to prison. It's a win-win.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah, but I was thinking in terms of the long game, this speech, it will become accepted opinion, in September? If we're looking for the long game? After the summer, he lays this down just before the summer holidays. Everybody disengages slightly while they enjoy their summer.
I don't know whether that's going to happen. Sorry to interrupt. I mean,
well, normal people will disengage.
The internet has resulted in a 24/7, 365 world. And this idea, well, the mining industry seems to go away for the summer, and I don't really understand how they can get away with that. But the idea that, oh, no, we're not going to really do very much politically for the summer because people want to eat hot dogs and take their boat onto the lake. I don't really think the world works like that anymore, but I could be wrong.
I think you're wrong. Yes, that's one thing I learned.
Okay.
That's one thing I learned
All
about
right.
construction. Oh, yeah. That's where I learned that whole political thing that I was in was a huge bubble, and that people do want to take their boat out onto the lake, and they want to water ski, and they want to eat hot dogs, and they want to have a nice summer, and they're ready to come back to it refreshed and ready to fight anew.
Yeah, but you see, you can't stop. I mean, he can't stop with the message.
No, we won't
because
stop
he is
podcasts,
propounding a radical agenda.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe it gets toned down a bit, or maybe the volume is reduced, but he has to keep reminding the American people of what he stands for, his radical agenda, and how different he is from Hillary Clinton. Because if he stops saying these things come September, when traditionally the presidential race goes into high gear, that's what they say,
Mm-hmm.
He can't be in a position of having to start all over again.
No, I'm talking about this speech in particular. It is said now because it's going to hit hard in September. It's going to be reset in September. There's going to be a whole bunch of other stuff, of course, in between. But this particular speech, with its hard-hitting indictment of Hillary Clinton, I mean, in a few days, there's going to be a book coming out by a Secret Service agent. I think it's coming out on the 28th. There's going to be all this other stuff, too, coming against Clinton. And people are going to go back to this speech. And they're going to use some of the research that he's, unearthed here, or some of the things that he said. That's going to be recirculated over the summer, but it's really going to hit hard in September. I mean, that's just my opinion on that because of the way I think politics is going to play out. He says this now because it's going to come back in September hard.
Do you remember the actress Jan Hooks?
No.
It was this delightful woman who was on Saturday Night Live, well, like every other comedian in America, right? And she portrayed Hillary Clinton in the 90s as a chain-smoking, depressive, prone to fits of rage. Now, the chain-smoking was hilarious because, of course, Hillary is the person who banned smoking from the White House. But I think that, Trump he's working on all these different levels, many of them subconscious, that if Saturday Night Live, 20 years ago came up with this idea of Hillary Clinton as a chain-smoking, depressive, prone to rage, other people are going to come around to this idea.
Mm-hmm. Well, we saw it took some time with the Islamic, the ban on Muslim immigration. It took some time, and this is going to take a little time too. It has less time, I think, because of the urgency that will hit in September. So,
well, Brexit, to go back to what we were talking about the first half of the podcast, Brexit is an enormous boost to Trump.
I think so, yeah. And this
because it makes him appear to be a man of the future.
Mm-hmm. And with his speech as well, I think this is going to be...
a rising tide lifts all boats, and the rising tide of anti-globalism will lift the SS Donald J. Trump, and he will ride that to the White House.
Okay, there you go. Turning one of their slogans in on them. Good enough, then. That brings us to the end of episode 43 of Grace and Steel. Thanks for listening. I'm Kevin Steele.
And I'm Kevin and Michael Grace.